What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with Dynasty Decisions, episode 62. We are midway through August at this point in time, so we're getting into prime, redraft season. There's training camps going on. Malik Willis is playing preseason games. There's a lot of shit going on in the football world right now, but we can't forget about Dynasty Decisions. Got to talk about some of these major decisions you guys are doing in your Dynasty leagues, talking about some rookie drafts, talking about some trade questions, rebuilding, contending type of questions. We are in full swing right now. So if you guys want to be a part of future episodes of Dynasty Decisions, I can't promise that we're going to get through our queue before the season actually ends up starting. But if you want to skip the line, as always, patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange. But we will try and hammer out as many as possible and try and catch up on the queue in the coming weeks. So with that being said, Danny, how you doing?
Doing well. And yeah, hope you guys missed the series. We brought it back, a couple weeks ago. Was the last episode, but we had to bring it back for you guys. Obviously, you guys are a big contingent in our Dynasty content, regardless whether it's redraft season, Dynasty season, you name it. We still have to keep that influx coming for you guys, help you guys determine your fantasy football teams, whether you're a contender, whether you're a rebuilder, and ultimately how to improve going forward.
Yeah, exactly. So as always, if you guys enjoyed this video at any point, leave us a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. If you're looking for redraft content, we got plenty of it going fast and furious daily on the channel. So check that all out. But with that being said, let's hit the intro. All right, the first team that we got here is from Nathan Morr, 14-team Superflex PPR. 14-team Superflexes always just absolutely hurt my brain, but we do have Kyler, Mac Jones as his main quarterbacks there with Sam Howell and some other guys. Dalvin Cook, Javonte Williams, Cam Akers, and TDP. CeeDee Lamb, Hollywood Brown, Jerry Jeudy, Gabe Davis, Kadarius Toney, Jameson Williams, Traylon Burks, mainly at wide receiver there. Pat Freiermuth, main tight end, does not have his first-round pick in 2023, has all of his other picks in the rest of the draft classes, and then he has some trades listed here as well. Overall, what are the thoughts on the team? He says he's currently the product of a 2-year rebuild. He said the hardest thing about a 14-team Superflex league was getting off of bad quarterbacks and then acquiring good ones. I would understand why that would be the case. He says the two recent trades that he did put him in a position to compete, but are there any moves/transitions that we can see or suggest?
Yeah, for sure. So, looking at this team, I would agree that you have to be in a competition window, given the fact that you do have Kyler, you do have those three running backs in particular, and then a wide receiver. You have a couple guys that you can really bank on, but outside of CD, I like Hollywood, but outside of CD, you don't really have a true alpha wide receiver to pair with him that I typically would want to see from a contender. So overall, again, you should be one of the top 4 teams in your league, but it depends on how long this league's been going. But I will say in a 14-teamer, this team probably compares very favorably rather than if it was a 12-teamer, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say, you guys, what we're going to say right now. Like Dalvin Cook is, you got to see what you can get for him. If I can somehow transition Dalvin Cook into a better receiver, a younger running back, maybe you want to take a swing on, J.K. Dobbins right now, or, Travis Etienne or somebody like that. I don't know what the dynamic of your league market is, but if Dalvin Cook is worth a ton in your league format, then you might be able to just quickly transition to a better receiver, quickly transition to a younger running back. Maybe you want to take Mac Jones and Dalvin Cook together and see if you can get a better quarterback too. Or maybe Dalvin Cook straight up gets you a quarterback 3 or a better quarterback 2 than Mac Jones. Like maybe you can transition Dalvin Cook straight up into his quarterback, into Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a fine move. I'd also be looking at because you're pretty set overall at the top, but if you can add some more depth to this team, maybe you could look at a move like Dalvin Cook plus Mac Jones. I know you just traded Zach Wilson, but Kirk Cousins and maybe a wide receiver, maybe an upgrade at tight end. Maybe you go after a guy like Darren Waller in this format would make a lot of sense because as much like Pat Freiermuth, if you're trying to win, having that secure top 5 type of option, maybe top 3 this year with Waller is going to help you in the long term specifically. So overall, or in the short term specifically. So overall, I think you got a strong team. I think, especially in a 14 team, when I first read this team, I assumed it was 12. That's why I was a little bit more cautious, but in a 14 team, I think you should definitely be in a good position, not only to make playoffs, but potentially compete for one of the bye weeks in your league.
Yeah, and we can run through these trades real quick, and then we'll move on to the next team. He traded away Elijah Mitchell, Kenny Pickett, and George Pickens. And in exchange for those guys, he got Zach Wilson, Hollywood Brown in a second. So, I really don't know how you pulled this trade off because, I would rather have Wilson than Pickett among the two quarterbacks. I would rather have Hollywood Brown, then Elijah Mitchell, and I guess, yeah, Hollywood in a second for Elijah Mitchell and Pickens. Maybe it's a little bit more of a fair deal depending on your thoughts on George Pickens, but I like this move overall. I think the best piece in this deal was Zach Wilson, and probably the second best piece in this deal was Hollywood Brown. So I like the fact that you got the best two pieces there.
Yep. No, I agree with it. And the second part of this deal, the second deal we see here is Zach Wilson, Najee Harris, Sky Moore, and a 2023 first in exchange for Kyler, Dalvin Cook. So if you're equating this deal, fairness in terms of market, what would you say, Dalvin Cook about Sky Moore?
Yeah, I was just looking right away, like, how do I get to Kyler was my first thought. Najee 20 and a 2023 first plus Sky Moore was how I would get to Kyler probably.
Yeah. In a 14 team super flex, I think I would probably need a little bit more if I had Kyler.
Right.
But
I'm just saying we're also
yeah,
lower on Najee. I'm saying relative market value for Harris is
that's fair.
probably like still a late, like a end of the first, early second round pick, right? So you got to figure end of the first, early second round startup pick plus a 2023 first and seventh round startup pick where Sky Moore goes is probably how you get to Kyler there. But I agree. I would rather have Kyler in the 14 team super flex side of things. And then
Yeah.
Dalvin and Zach Wilson again. I would take Zach Wilson, but I think relative market value dictates that those guys are pretty close. So I like the trade that you made. I would have rather, as I kind of already talked
Different
about
running
with
back.
Cook, was just rather gotten somebody else than Cook on top of it. If you could have gotten like a wide receiver that goes in that range, like a Judy or somebody like, I guess you already have Judy on your team, but like a Bateman or somebody like that, I probably would have liked this deal a little bit more.
Would you have said if we had gotten rid of hypothetically Dalvin in the 2023 first, which in market value might be the cost? Like I would much have rather done that type of deal, but
Right.
ultimately, again, you're trying to compete. We're not big fans of Dalvin Cook, but he's still a first round selected running back. So if you're trying to win, I mean, this is going to better your chances for point production specifically.
Yeah, exactly. So overall, you're in a pretty decent spot. Like Danny said, in a 14 team league, you should have a good enough team to be, at minimum like a high end playoff team with this one. So we can move on to Cody's team, which is the next team that we have here. It is a 12 team super flex, half PPR, 0.5 tight end premium. Main quarterbacks there as Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, Davis Mills. Not much going on at running back other than some rookies, Algier, Robinson, and Herbert Gainwell there. And then he has mainly Justin Jefferson and AJ Brown at wide receiver with Olave, Jameson Williams, Brandon Ayuk, Wan'Dale Robinson, a couple other guys there. And then he obviously has the gold standard Kyle Pitts at end. And he has 3 1s in 2023. He has 3 2s in 2023 as well. And then all of his picks in 2024. So he says this is directly post startup. So future picks are mostly random. He didn't do as much trading back as he could have because of the value that kept falling to him in rounds 1 to 4. I'm assuming he got good value on guys like, Justin Jefferson, Trey Lance, AJ Brown, and Kyle Pitts, which were probably his first 4-round picks. So I definitely don't mind just grabbing those guys and not trading back. The trading back part for both of us usually occurs in rounds 4 to like 8 anyway, because we like to get a couple foundational pieces for our rebuild. So I really like that you were able to do that. He said he went in doing a 1-year punt, hence the 0 RB. He feels like he's stuck with only one foundational quarterback, though, which is the thing he doesn't like about his team, and no running back talent, and not quite enough 2023 capital to make up for it and fill out those positions in that class. So he says, which moves would you try and make in his situation? His first thought is trying to flip AJ Brown. Or am I waiting until 2024 or something to fill out some of these positions? And he says 2024 picks are mostly off limits since we require buy-ins to trade picks.
Okay, so for reference too, if you are selling AJ Brown, I'd be fine with it as long as you can get some type of quarterback equity or more 2023 capital. If you were to do that, that would be the move that I would look forward specifically with the construction of your team. Yeah, I think you did a good job in this startup. Obviously, you have foundational pieces at quarterback, wide receiver, and tight end, which if you're building a productive struggle is where you kind of want to be aligning a lot of the value on your team. In terms of this team, the fact that you're able to get those foundational pieces along with 2023 first, yeah, it sucks that you don't have a second foundational quarterback they can rely upon, but I mean, you still built this team the right way for the most part. Adding a second would have been the cherry on top. Obviously, you would have preferred to have it, but realistically, with the value that you have accrued, you are leaving your draft probably at least 1.2, 1.3x your average lead mate in terms of value accrued.
Yeah, for sure. Like you got guys on your team that are going to be, borderline untouchable assets in trades with Justin Jefferson and Kyle Pitts and maybe Trey Lance if he's able to take that step forward as well. He has some of his trades listed during the startup. We can kind of just run through these real quick to see what the value's like. At the 509, he traded down to the 1311 and picked up a 2023 first on top of that. The 509 became Jerry Jeudy. He got Wan'Dale Robinson at the 1311. I think that's a great move there. He sent away Kirk Cousins, which was the 604. In exchange for the 1510 and the 2023 first, and he grabbed Khalil Herbert there. A good piece to add to your team. You can maybe flip him midseason. He has a chance to accrue some value with Montgomery becoming a free agent after this year as well. So definitely like that pick. And then he traded down from the 804 and the 909 in exchange for a 2023 second. Or sorry, he traded up from the 804 to the 802 to grab Chris Olave and got a 2023 second, 1609 in exchange for Kenny Pickett and Elijah Moore. I probably like the Pickett and Elijah Moore side of that.
It's funny because if you had just taken Elijah Moore, I would have liked your side there. I don't know how Elijah Moore is still going in the 8th round of startups, but I mean, as much as I like Chris Olave, Elijah Moore is just, I would much rather Elijah Moore is how basically I would say it.
Yeah, he's just a better player in my opinion. So like that's just a micro difference though. Overall, I don't think you gave up a ton to move up and get a guy that you seemingly are really high on. So I don't mind that move. And then you sent away the 1309 by the looks of it for the 1901 and a 2023 second. I think that's a solid move. You pick up a second rounder for pretty much nothing that you gave up for it there. So your startup moves were pretty solid. You collected a lot of good value. You do probably have some work to do. Like you said, kind of, should I shop AJ Brown for a quarterback? I do think that would make some sense if you're able to shop AJ Brown straight up for I'm trying to think who you could get straight up for AJ Brown in the quarterback territory, because I'd probably want a little bit more than like the Zach Wilson, like Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence guys, but I don't think you're going to get up enough to get Jalen Hurts or Dak Prescott, and you already have Trey Lance on your team.
Yeah, you might want to look into a potential deal to get like Zach Wilson and a pick. I would say is probably the appropriate range. Like, even do you think in most leagues you're going to be able to do like AJ Brown and a second for Zach Wilson and a first?
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad move at all. I also think, like you kind of already touched on, just getting 2023 picks for AJ Brown is fine too, because the quarterback class is probably going to be pretty solid, and the quarterback equity that you have to spend on just drafting a rookie quarterback as opposed to getting an already like solidified guy is going to be just much less if you just rely on your drafting ability and grab yourself a Stroud, Young, Levis, whoever next year. And I do think we might be underrating how good the quarterback class has a chance to be, because if things break right, the quarterback class could be really good for fantasy, but it also could just be Stroud and Young if things break wrong. So there's a good chance that that you'll be well set up to be able to address that position if you maybe punt some more 2023 capital by selling off AJ Brown.
Yep. No, I would agree with that. Though I will say, I mean, like your bread and butter here, you have to hold on to those 2023 picks, and then from there you kind of see, oh, can I get 2024 capital plus?
I would also buy in for 2024 if you're able.
That's what I was gonna say. He, because I mean, he does say like it's tough because his league mates might not be willing to buy in, which is going to be tough to accrue capital then. But like again, try for the capital. If it's not going to be possible, then just wait until the rookie draft once people are able to transition those picks. And I mean, you might be able to get 2024 first for like the 2023 105 at draft day if people are eyeing like Jackson Smith and Jigba or Kayshon Boutte or one of those running backs. They might be willing to slightly overpay, 1.3x on the dollar just to secure one of those guys.
Yeah, and I would say mid-season, try and find like a fringe team and see if they're willing to buy in for 2024 to make a push for 2023, because you can really take advantage of guys like that. Because then if it doesn't work out for them, they could be trying to rebuild in 2024 and they won't have their own first-round pick, and it could end up being really high for you. So definitely just, a slight micro thing that I might take advantage of. But we can move on to the next team here, which is from Caleb. He has his team listed on the screen, 10-team, half PPR Superflex. He's built to win now and in the future, so he's looking for advice on how to increase his chances this year without throwing away too much of his future potential. So that's his own assessment of his team. He's got Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson, awesome quarterback core there. Those guys are all like first-round picks. In my rankings, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, J.K. Dobbins, Kenneth Walker, Antonio Gibson, really deep at running back, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, A.J. Brown, D.J. Moore, Michael Pittman Jr., Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans, Rashad Bateman, Marquise Brown, Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins. You're very deep. Like, I don't even need to keep reading your team. Mark Andrews, he has 2 2023 firsts, one of them being early to mid, and then probably one being his own. Doesn't have his second. But for the most part, I mean, we don't need to spend too much time on your team, Caleb, because there isn't really anything that I would do with this team. Like, I would just go in and try and win.
There is one macro difference that I would like to do. Obviously, right now you probably want to hold, but I mean, it depends what the market is. I would say you're too strongly built at running back, which is, weird to say, but I would personally rather be 3 or 4 valuable running backs deep as opposed to, as you kind of have here, 5. So if you can transition that into maybe, Gibson plus one receiver for a receiver upgrade or something like that. Maybe you add, Gibson, Mark Andrews in like a second in 2024. I'm not sure if you move 2024 capital, but maybe that gets you around the Pitts range if that guy's trying to win now. Those are the types of moves I'm trying to make. I just think having 5 running backs just gives you way too much risk that you kind of want to hold, especially early portion of the season.
Yeah, I mean, realistically though, you could just use Gibson as depth if you needed to. Like, there's
Yeah.
really nothing that you have to do with this team. Your starting lineup is gonna be Herbert and Burrow, McCaffrey and Barkley, Jamar Chase and AJ Brown, Mark Andrews, and then you flex in one of like 78 different options that you have on your roster. Probably Pittman, Evans, like some of the guys there will be your main flex options, and you have plenty of flexibility to be able to, you have J.K. Dobbins, Kenneth Walker, and Antonio Gibson if you ever have to throw in those guys for, your injury prone, as most people like to call Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley running back. So I would personally just do nothing with this team. I don't think you really have to do anything.
Yep. Just again, I would say look in season for a potential move to get rid of one running back. I would say that's the only thing.
Yeah, I'd also explore potentially going after Cooper Kupp with this team too. I'm not usually, one to advise trading for Cooper Kupp, but if the person who has Cooper Kupp is more so looking to get a little bit younger, maybe you can 1-for-1 swap AJ Brown for Cooper Kupp, and in that situation, you're going to get that point upgrade on Cooper Kupp if it's worthwhile to do so. But again, I probably wouldn't need to do anything with this team. So we can move on to Nick's team. He has a number of questions here. We'll try and work through as much as we can. 12-team, 1 quarterback league. PPR start 8. So it's a 1 QB league. Justin Herbert and Deshaun Watson is all you need with Malik Willis there. Travis Etienne, J.K. Dobbins as his main running backs. Wide receivers, Drake London, Traylon Burks, Garrett Wilson, David Bell, etc. there. Kyle Pitts is his main tight end. He has 3 1s, 2 projected early in 2023, 2 2s as well, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 thirds in 2024. So pretty well-balanced team of youth and draft capital and stuff there. He has a couple trades that we can go through real quick here. The first trade, he trades away CeeDee Lamb and Kadarius Toney. And in exchange for those guys, he's able to get 2 1s, a 2023 and a 2024. And I don't know if that one of those was the projected early one. Drake London, the 2023 second and third. So, I mean, it's pretty easily a woodshed trade for me.
I love CeeDee Lamb, but like in a 1 quarterback league, at most you say what? Even if we're being super, super kind to CeeDee, the picks, and then at that point you just swap Toney for London? Like, is that what we're doing?
I would just easily say I'd rather have Drake London in a first and a heartbeat over CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
So that's pretty easy move for me to make.
Yeah, no, that's another great way to look at it. Either way, that's a woodshed, see you later, pal type of move. Let's be honest. Next deal, though, I mean, I don't know who's buying Kenyon Drake, Corey Davis at 2 and 2 3s and giving you a 2023 1, but you should make a lot of trades with that guy in that league.
Yeah, and you got he says too, he took the second and the third that he got in the CD trade and basically parlayed it into like getting another first out of, some junk pieces like Kenyon Drake, Corey Davis, and another third. So yeah, easy move to make here as well. He also traded away Joe Burrow, Elijah Moore, and Michael Carter. And in exchange for those guys, he got Justin Herbert, Garrett Wilson, a 2023 and 2024 second, and a 2024 third.
I love Elijah Moore. I love Joe Burrow, but I mean, realistically, what the difference between, even if like
honest to God, I think the difference between Herbert and Burrow is Elijah Moore. Like, I think it's that big of a difference still.
Probably, yeah. Well, like even if for reference, like if you're the most high on Joe Burrow, let's just say for E's sake, Herbert and Wilson, Burrow and Moore. Then at that point, you get 2 2s and a 3 for Michael Carter. Like, yeah, give me the side you got here, Herbert, Wilson, and the picks.
Yeah, and he gives a bunch of background info on his league as well. It's a hometown redraft league that he these guys look like they're new to Dynasty. He said it's everybody's first time playing Dynasty, including himself. His startup draft was a month ago. He noticed everybody was overvaluing 2022 players, which most redraft players will do. He said his team is the worst in the league by a bit, so his picks should be high. He said he's planning on holding his picks until at least combine season next year, but he knows his depth is not great. So he said, as a first-time Dynasty player, what are your thoughts on his moves so far and how he's built this team? I think you've done a great job. You've clearly been paying attention. It looks like you're more experienced with this then if you told me this was your 5th Dynasty league, I would have believed you. Like, it doesn't look like you're a first-time player at all. He also says, where do you think he needs to target next offseason upgrade-wise? I would say, like, just looking at your roster in general, the only things that really stick out to me is because you're not trying to compete right away. Dobbins and ETN are guys that I would maybe float on the trade block and see what they're kind of looking for right now, because there's no real unnecessary risk to holding running backs on your roster. And ETN, maybe you want to hold because he has a chance of, really accumulating a lot of value. But Dobbins, as far as like the injury concern, maybe you can, float him out in trades and see what he might be worth on the open market. Because if you can flip him straight up into a 2023 first or a 2024 first, I'm definitely cool doing that and mitigating some of that risk on your roster.
Yep. No, I would agree with that. But overall, I mean, looking at this team, the fact that you've built it this way, the fact that you have 3 firsts, including 2 projected early, like, good luck to your league mates. Because, I mean, first Dynasty league for you, first Dynasty league for the rest of your league mates, you're going to be in a very, very strong position for a while with this build.
Yeah, and he asked a number of questions too, like how do I fill out my depth and all that kind of stuff. You have a lot of draft capital to be able to do so. You're going to be able to flip players midseason for draft capital if, Rojo or Malik Willis or Van Jefferson or some of these random fringe guys on your roster turn into anything during the season. You can flip them for 2s and 3s all day and twice on Sunday. So yeah, you're in a really good spot. I think you did. He said he found us right before his startup draft. So you definitely lucked out there. I think you're doing a great job and you should be well set up in the future. So we can move on. But before we do, we have to hear a word from our sponsors over at Manscaped. And you guys will be hearing that right now.
Hey lads, today's episode is brought to you by our sponsors over at Manscaped, the leaders in male grooming across the globe. With fantasy football drafts right around the corner, it's time to fix up your grooming routine. CeeDee Lamb is good, but have you seen these beautiful nuts? Get your snake looking right for your oncoming snake draft with the sponsors of today's show, Manscaped. The leaders in below the waist grooming have created a championship lineup with their Performance Package 4.0. Inside their Performance Package 4.0, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag. Tom Brady didn't come out of retirement for you to have hairy balls. Spotted at quarterback, we have the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. This trimmer is here to guide you on a journey to trim your body, balls, and even your A-gap. The 4th generation trimmer also features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 also has a 7,000 RPM motor, a new multi-function on-off switch that can engage a travel lock, and is even waterproof. This Performance Package 4.0 doesn't just stop at the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. We also include the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer, the Ultimate Flex. Watch it run through your ear and nose hairs like Derrick Henry coming through that A-gap. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and uses a 9,000 RPM motor-powered 360-degree rotary dual blade system. This nose and ear hair trimmer provides proprietary skin-safe technology, which helps reduce nicks, snags, and tugs in those sensitive holes of yours. Don't forget to use the Crop Preserver ball deodorant and their Crop Reviver ball toner to help your little bench warmers be on their A game while feeling the sun's heat. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts in their Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Who's the commissioner now? This summer, it's time to join 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming, with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use promo code BUSH for 20% off plus free shipping. Again, 20% off plus free shipping with the code BUSH at manscaped.com. Manscaped gives your manhood the proper treatment it deserves. We appreciate the support for the Fantasy Stock Exchange by our friends over at Manscaped and thank them for sponsoring today's video. And speaking of that video, let's get right back to it.
All right, so let's get on to Paska's team. And shout out to Paska. He was actually our first ever patron. So big shout out to him. He has his team listed here. Jalen Hurts, Ryan Tannehill, Kenny Pickett as his main quarterbacks. DeAndre Swift, Akers, Pierce, Cook as his main running backs. Jefferson, Waddle, Higgins, Marquise Brown, Garrett Wilson, Jahan Dotson as his main wide receivers. And then Dallas Goedert there as his main tight end. Does not have either of his ones, though, in the next 2 draft classes. So he says, here's his team. He's ready to compete this year. Pretty much has to without any of his first round picks in the next 2 years. And he said, he'd like to hear our opinions on a few trades that he made. So quickly, what are your thoughts on his team? Do you think he can compete before we break down the trades?
Yeah, I think he could definitely compete with his team. Obviously, it is a 1 quarterback league, by the way. I forgot to mention it when I wrote this team down. But Jalen Hurts, obviously an elite difference maker at the quarterback position. Running backs with Swift, Akers in particular, you should be able to piece together really strong running back production with them. And obviously, if Pierce or James Cook emerge, then you have a a good depth at that position. I think you built this room well. Wide receiver, you're absolutely freaking loaded. I mean, Jefferson, Waddle, Higgins, Marquise Brown, Garrett Wilson is super, super strong. And then tight end Goddard, we've basically already coined him as the next Mark Andrews on this channel before. So if he can become that, then you are in a very good spot with the team. So while you don't have your picks, which is not brutal, but it is tough to deal with not having your first round picks in the next 2 years. You are well within a position to potentially go for the championship this year, which, I mean, with this build, you should be able to do so.
Yeah, exactly. So you made a couple trades here. You traded away Antonio Gibson for Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Pierce. I think you get 2 bites at the apple of running backs that could potentially accumulate value for a guy that I think could lose value. So I think that's definitely a pretty solid trade there. Then he flipped Ramondre after that trade, plus George Pickens for Saquon Barkley in a 2023 second. Now, after this trade, I would have just stopped because I don't really like the last trade that you made, but this trade I really like. Ramondre and Pickens for Saquon and a 2 is an awesome move because I think Ramondre is give or take worth about a second-round pick, and I would much rather have Saquon Barkley than George Pickens.
Yeah, you should have stopped here. I don't think it was a brutal deal on the last deal. Saquon and a 2 for James Cook and Garrett Wilson, but I would personally rather the random second over James Cook, and I personally would rather Saquon over Garrett Wilson. So while it's not egregious, I would have just kept Saquon. You would have rolled out Saquon, Swift, Akers as your main 3 running backs in what should be a competitive window. And yeah, I think you would have been in a better position at that point, but you still have a strong team. You still have a really good shot at being a top 3, top 4 at minimum type of team in your league.
Yeah. So overall, just go out, try and compete this year. Maybe you can make some moves here and there during the season. You still have both of your seconds if you needed to like push your chips in, go after Mike Evans or somebody like that during the season to help build out your roster a little bit more if you suffer some injuries. But for the most part, I think you're in a good spot. So we can move on to the next team, which is from N. Kittel. He has a Superflex 10-team standard league. 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, and a super flex, as I mentioned. Deshaun Watson, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson as his main quarterbacks. That's such a me quarterback core. It's not even funny. Travis Etienne is his main running backs there. And then Rashad Bateman, Amon-Ra, Claypool, Juju, Gallup, Ayuk, a bunch of guys that are, more like wide receiver 2-3 types in Dynasty there. Gold standard Kyle Pitts with Dallas Goedert as his main backup there. He has the 101 this year, the 103 this year. It looks like he has 2023. Oh, he doesn't have his second, but he has all of his 3rd through 7th round rookie picks as well. He has 4 1s next year, 2 2s, 2 3s, all of the rest of his picks in 2023, and then 2 1s and 2 2s in 2024. So built out a pretty young team with some foundational pieces like the quarterbacks and like the main tight end there. I think he's in, a really good spot. He has a couple trades there as well listed.
Yeah, so I mean, looking at this team, if it's a you quarterback core, I mean, this is a me running back core where you get one like semi appreciating asset with Travis Etienne, and then nothing after that. Because guess what? You know where you're going to get your running back production? You're going to get it at low opportunity costs in your rookie drafts, which you've clearly built out with 4 1s in 2023 and 2 1s in 2024. So for a pure productive struggle team, like, I always say this, but good luck to your league mates once you actually add some running back production to this team. Because the way you've built this, you're strong at quarterback, you're strong at wide receiver, you're super strong at tight end. You add, Bijan Robinson or freaking Jahmyr Gibbs this year, or potentially, Braylon Allen, Trevion Henderson next year. Holy crap, it's going to be tough to deal with your team.
Yeah, exactly. He said he has some things listed here where he said he did this before the 6-game recommended suspension came out. So he said he might have overpaid a little bit for Watson, but he literally traded away the 105 and Cam Akers for Deshaun Watson in 2024 second. Maybe you could have gotten him for a little bit less than that, but I would say given the uncertainty situation of where it was at the time, I think that's a great move. You offload. As much as I love Cam Akers, you guys know I love Cam Akers, a running back that has depreciability in his range of outcomes, and the 105, which is a solid pick. It's like Garrett Wilson or something like that. But Deshaun Watson is a franchise level quarterback for your dynasty team that you can build around for years to come. And the second rounder helps balance that out a little bit. So I really do like this trade for you. And the only thing I would really recommend with your team is maybe going after a foundational wide receiver because you have so many pieces, but nobody that's standing out as this is a stud wide receiver that you have. Maybe you can package together a Amon-Ra and Juju and go after a Chase or somebody like maybe you have to add picks to that obviously too. But for the most part, there's not much that you would really need to do with this team. I would say, because you still have you're going to add Breece Hall to this team, presumably at the 101. You're going to add, Burks or London or Garrett Wilson at 103. So those are two more, foundational pieces that you can add to this roster. And like Danny said, you got 6 ones over the next 2 draft classes to be able to fill out the running back core as well. You don't have to worry about tight end or quarterback for a rebuild, which is pretty rare. It's a pretty rare situation to be in, to have this much draft capital and not have to worry about quarterback or tight end.
For sure. I mean, you build this in a way where you're somewhat house money this year. Obviously, you're more so on the rebuilding side, but you can easily flip a lot of those contingent production pieces in season if you needed to. And as Corey said, if you want to go out and you want to get a foundational type of wide receiver, you have the capital to be able to do so, especially in terms of your depth. Because if you can leverage production, if you can leverage numbers into foundation this year, specifically, like if a stud wide receiver gets hurt, like if AJ Brown goes down for like 4 or 5 games and you go to the owner, let's say Juju Smith-Schuster at that point, it's like the wide receiver 14 in PPR points per game, and say, hey, listen, I will give you Juju and Michael Gallup. Say Michael Gallup's returning by then. Juju, Michael Gallup, in like a second for your AJ Brown. At that point, you're getting rid of wide receiver production on your team, and you're getting, as Corey said, a foundational piece to build around once you're ready to go in that competition window.
Yeah, and he also says too, like, we haven't had our draft yet, so any extra input on who to draft, he said he needs to drop 5 players. I mean, you can clip pretty much like the end of your wide receiver core there, and probably one of those tight ends as well, and maybe one of the quarterbacks. So you're pretty much well set up there. And like I said, 101, I'm going Breece Hall. 103, I'm probably going to go, where I have currently ranked there is Garrett Wilson, but if you want to go with, a Burks or a Drake London, if he falls there, then that would definitely make some sense as well. But for the most part, I think you're well set up. You just got to build this thing out, spend your draft picks, continue to accumulate value, look for moves in season for guys like, Juju and, guys like that. So let's get into the final team of the video, which is from Sasks Pirate. He has it listed here as the Safe League. I don't know if that's what it's actually called, but that's kind of jokes. 12 team Superflex PPR with a 1.0 tight end premium. So 2 points per reception for the tight end position. Definitely nice to have Mark Andrews as your main tight end in a format like that. Brady and Kirk Cousins as his main quarterback, CMC, Eckler, Derrick Henry, CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs. I think we know if he's competing or rebuilding with this team. 2023 second, third, and fourth, does not have his first year or his first next year, and doesn't have, or he has all of his future picks 2024 and 2025. So he basically said he just finished drafting this team. He said, could you rip it apart on Dynasty decisions? He said he hated doing it, but the vets were just too good a value to pass up. Now, number one, before we get into this further, if you're going to build a contender, like, go big or go home. You built a contender. Like, this is a good contending build in a startup. So just because we like going, 1 year punt, 1 year productive struggle and building out value doesn't mean this can't work. If everybody in your league is trying to go young and you're able to get good value on players, which I think, if this is right after the startup, I would say you got great value on a lot of these guys.
Yeah, this team is very well built, to say the least. Typically we see a lot of bias towards players wanting to build a redraft team share of their startup. But if you're going to go the competitive route, this is the way to do it. So ultimately here, you're 3 deep in terms of, if all those guys stay healthy, all those running backs are pretty much top 8, maybe top 6 type of locks.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of those receivers too. Adams and Diggs are going to be top 5 to 8 locks. AJ Brown and Lamb, I expect to be wide receiver 1s. And I'm honestly shocked how you even got this team right after a startup, because like Lamb and AJ Brown would have been high picks, as would Mark Andrews in a 1 point tight end premium, 2 points per reception for tight ends. So you must have gotten like phenomenal value on CMC and Adams and Diggs and those guys. They must have just been really sliding to you. Obviously you fade quarterback, but in a contending window, Brady and Cousins is really all you need for this team.
Yeah, no, I agree. So there's not many weaknesses to pick from this team. You've clearly got elite production at your positions. Obviously the longevity of your quarterbacks may be a concern. So maybe you look for something like in season if you can. But realistically, Brady, if he's healthy, is going to be a top 8-ish type of quarterback. Cousins, if he's healthy, is going to be a top 12, 13 type of quarterback. And then, as we kind of said, with your depth at running back, receiver, and an elite difference maker at tight end, like, you should, I say top 3, top 4 often. Like, I'd be shocked if you weren't number 1 in your league.
Yeah, I agree. And it looks like the way he got this team is that it was an auction draft and not a regular startup. So that's why he got, I guess, all the high price guys, the Chases and the Jeffersons, just sucked everybody's bank accounts away. And Nobody could afford some of these high priced, production pieces as well. He also traded away, by the looks of it, he traded away his 2023 first for AJ Brown, which, I mean, your first gonna be late. Like, I'm
Yeah.
totally cool with that move. I would rather have AJ Brown than an early first. So I'll take the late or AJ over the late first any day of the week.
Yeah, it's funny when you think about it because I mean, you basically traded what, like Michael Mayer for AJ Brown at this point?
Yeah, and with this team format, you definitely are in a position that AJ Brown can definitely help you out. And it looks like he has his like starters highlighted, and AJ Brown's going to be in his lineup each and every week. So, for the most part, he says, should I go after another quarterback because after Brady and Cousins, he doesn't really have anybody. What are your thoughts on going after? He said, a Carson Wentz, a Matt Ryan, a Davis Mills, just to have like a third quarterback. Would you do that now, or would you do that when you need them?
When you need them for sure. Because I mean, realistically, in season, like the price is not going to go up much for any of those quarterbacks. Like most, you'll probably have to pay for like a Matt Ryan, maybe is what a second, like most.
Yeah, like at the very most, I think you have to give up your 2 for either of those guys.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't really see a lot of price volatility where, oh, all of a sudden somebody's going to be looking for a first for them because people aren't that delusional. People aren't dumb enough to think, yeah, I'm just going to trade my 36-year-old Matt Ryan for a 2023. They're not going to go like that. But I mean, realistically, now if you try to buy, they'd probably say a 2023 second. And what that goes up to maybe I don't even see it going up. I'll be honest. I think that's going to be about the price for the next 2-3 months.
Yeah, like the only like if you can somehow do like a 2-for-1 with some of your depth pieces for like a low
Yep.
end quarterback 3, like a Matt Ryan, a Jameis Winston, a Carson Wentz. If somebody wants like young pieces, you can give them like James Robinson and like Will Fuller after he signs with the Cowboys or something. Like I'm cool with it at that point. Going after a third quarterback preemptively before you need them, but worst case scenario, you just start like an extra wide receiver in your flex spot on bye weeks for Brady and Cousins. Like I don't think it's terrible if you just roll with those two guys because neither of them have been injury prone either. They're not rushing quarterbacks. They're probably not likely to get injured. So I'd be totally cool just rolling with those guys for most of the season.
Yep. No, I would agree with that. But overall, very strong team. You should be able to compete right off the bat. Are there any other thoughts you have, or should we wrap up this video?
No, we can wrap this one up. I feel like this is the fastest we've ever done a
Yeah.
Dynasty Decisions video. So if you guys made it to this point in the video, just comment like fastest Dynasty Decisions ever. Just happened that we had a lot of straightforward questions and we were actually organized for once. So that's pretty much where we're at with this one. If you guys enjoyed, as always, hit the like button, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new as well. Comment whatever you want down below. We appreciate any and all comments. Check out some of our other videos. We got, don't draft these running backs early, draft these running backs instead. We got, the #1 draft strategy for those of you guys that are looking for some redraft advice. So make sure you guys check those videos out as well. And again, if you guys want to be on future episodes of Dynasty Decisions, you want to skip the line, get your team right in before the season starts, patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange is the way to do that. We'll try and run a couple more Dynasty Decisions before the season starts to try and get through some of those of you that have been waiting since, mid-July or so is probably where the queue is at right about now. And we'll definitely do our best to get through as many teams as we can. But like I said, if you want to skip the line, Patreon is how you do so.
Yep, for sure. We have a ton of teams that are ready to be discussed. So again, skip the line, patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange. But either way, I appreciate you guys for making it for the last 35 minutes. Again, a very, very quick episode, and enjoy your week. Take care.